Hey, this is my Aunt Mary, my favorite aunt on earth, and she is sister to my mom, and she's going to tell us a little about what it was like to live in Athens, Greece during World War II at the German occupation. So, Aunt Mary, why don't you just go ahead and tell us the first time you realized that the Germans were in town.
Well, the first thing, it was very hard for us that we were 10 and 12 years old when the war started, when the Germans came in, was the lack of food and chocolate and all that other stuff that kids like. We didn't starve, but we were always short on good stuff. What we like. That's the first thing I remember. Then we had to change schools because the Germans took the school that we were going in for barracks, and they sent us to the school that was, I swear to God, 2 miles away, that we had to walk every day. So we were skinny and healthy. We walked a lot. At the school, the Germans, thinking that they were going to win the war, tried to gentrify the little kids. So first of all, we belonged to this youth organization, and we went to meetings in uniform and hats, like little Germans.
This was the Hitler Youth?
Yeah, exactly. And at school, in order to pass a grade, you have to pass your German. Well, all the kids that were there didn't have French lessons and stuff like we had since we were kids, so they had no idea. And not even to the Latin alphabet. So the teachers let Lily and I go and do the examination of all the kids. Who knows, 15 kids who went around filling all the things so they could pass to the next grade.
Your way of rebelling against the Germans?
With the teacher's blessing. The teacher didn't say a word, he just sit there and watched us. So that's all I remember of going to school. Nothing else was, we went to school because I finished high school in 3 years after the war, so I went to high school about 2 years when the Germans were there. And I don't remember anything else, and I guess I got used to it.
What about the Germans occupying your house, the leadership taking over your beautiful home?
No, the beautiful home was taken over by the Greek police, as a matter of fact.
Oh, the Greek.
That's later.
That's later.
Yeah. No, we didn't have any Germans living near us or bothering us. Now, we had Italians, because the Italians were, at the time, they were part of the Axis. They were friends with the Germans. So when they occupied Greece, the Italians came in, and they were like the force that took care of all the safe stuff. And they were very nice. And of course, us being part Italian, we kind of gravitated with them, so we made great friends with our occupiers.
Did your mom play up the Vianelli name with the Italian?
Yes, she sure did. She sure did. And as a matter of fact, she found a colonel that was part relative. And not how she went up. He went up in Greece with the occupation, and she invited him to our house. This colonel. So of course we were a little not liked by the other kids because of the fact we were Catholic. Can I do what? And we were part Italian and all that stuff. So we were a little.
Yeah, for those that don't know, being Catholic and Greek Greece where everybody's Greek Orthodox. It was kind of a no-no back then.
Yeah, there's a great dislike of Catholics in Greece, more than you'll find with other religions.
So what is your worst memory about the German occupation?
My worst memory, we were all immune to by then. That when the Germans left, that was the worst thing for us. There was no police, no government, until they came. The government had gone to Egypt. So until they came back, there was chaos. So during the chaos, the resistance to the Germans came in and killed anybody that collaborated with the Germans in any way. And our mother was in danger with her Italian connections. My father had to talk a lot to get her out of that jam. But anyway, we'll make it. That's when the Greek police, their own station was ruined. They took over our beautiful house, half of it, and they let us live in the other half, which was miserable. And that's when we saw bodies in the street with a policeman and a newspaper over the body until they came to get it. And that was all this things that the enemies of the Germans did to anybody who had collaborated. So my worst memory is to see a body on the ground with a policeman with a newspaper on top.
What about the shooting range where the trucks with
okay.
this was the Germans or Italians, or excuse me?
That was the Germans.
Germans.
The Italians were friendly, and all they did is make babies. They were very friendly. I love babies. The Germans had a horrible thing, and I guess they did it in other countries. If the resistance, let's say, bombed a train in northern Greece, they would come to Athens in the biggest square in Athens where everybody practically passes through, and take 50 men and take them out in this shooting range that was past our house, but you go to there, you had to pass from our street, and shot them dead. And they did it more than once, and of course we didn't know. But at the one time I saw the truck comes back and it was dripping blood. That's my worst memory.
And that was because there was...
Later I found out that one of the victims was a cousin of ours that we knew real well. And that was the worst.
So the trucks coming back, blood was pouring out of the back because there was bodies in it?
Yeah. Yeah, the trucks were leaking blood.
So, Aunt Mary, the one story that's always vivid in my mind is the time that there was an explosion outside your house.
Oh, yeah.
And the glass, was that Germans or the Greek resistance, communists?
This was the Greek, the communists were fighting the government at the time, right after the war. And they had the suburbs and the government had the city. So we lived in the suburbs, and these young guys with the red scarves going around looking very glamorous. Also, they thought we're across the street. And the English at the time that were in central Athens was bombing the suburbs, trying to get these rebels out. And accidentally, on purpose, I don't know anyway, one of those what do you call those bombs?
Was it a bomber? British bomber?
No, it was something you sent with a,
A mortar?
yeah, okay, a mortar. It's good enough. Landed right in the middle of the street. And right before that, my father said to us, we had, my baby brother was 6 months old at the time. He said, sit on the floor with the kid and feed it, don't sit in the chair. I said, why not? And we sat on the floor. And then when that thing exploded, it broke every glass in the house and all the chandeliers and everything. There was nothing. It was such an explosion that nothing that was made of glass survived. But they were sitting in the floor, otherwise probably us and the baby would have gotten killed.
And what would your mom do? I always thought that was a funny story.
What is that story? My mother was she was in the back of the house, so she was safer than we were. This bedroom we were sitting on was in front. Well, she came out and she thought she was hurt. That guy, and glass had fallen on her. So being my mother, instead of saying, are my kids okay? Oh. Sorry, Mom. But it's true. So you heard that story, huh?
Yeah, that's a great story. So, towards the end of the war, how did one of the stories I always heard about you and Mom going over during the communists trying to take over the country? There was a no man's land that you two would go across, that there'd be shooting going back and forth?
One Christmas. That Christmas, as a matter of fact, that would be Christmas 1945. Lily and I said, oh, we're tired of what we're eating. They're giving us, bread and, I don't know, whatever we were eating. And we said, we're going to go to the black market, which is on the center of Athens. And we had heard that people could pass through. You showed your ID card or whatever you had, and they let you through. So there we didn't say anything to anybody, that we weren't allowed to do that. We walked downtown Athens, passed through the guards or whatever they had there, and we went shopping. Came back with a box of spaghetti and a can of it wasn't Spam. It was something like a Spam can, but it was some kind of other meat in there. And we went home and cooked the spaghetti and ate the Spam or whatever it was. It was delicious.
So how dangerous was it making that cross the no man's land?
There were flying bullets in there. I mean, they wouldn't shoot little kids, but by accident, not on purpose.
Aunt Mary, one of my favorite stories is how Grandpa, he was a pretty wealthy man. One time he owned a lumber company, but during the war, the Germans took all the lumber, and he had all these ledgers from his business he kept up in the attic.
I have to confess to
Yes, and you sold them and he did, without him knowing, because paper was really scarce at the time. Can you tell that story?
Yeah, that's right. And I was always hungry for something sweet. Always. And I was the entrepreneur of Lily and I were the both of us together constantly, very, very close. So we take one of his ledgers and go to the black market and sell it.
How old were you?
12.
That's pretty enterprising for a 12-year-old.
And then buy this, it's a candy that I have seen it here in the States, but not much. It's a sesame seeds in a candy bar with honey. It's called pastelli, so that's what we ate.
Well, tell the part about Grandpa never knowing about the ledgers, and he went upstairs to look for them, and he couldn't find them.
I didn't hear that. I never.
Oh, what I heard is he went upstairs to the attic, and he couldn't find the ledgers, and he was asking everybody what happened to him. Nobody said anything. He never knew that they
Well,
were
nobody knew anything except Lily, and she wouldn't say anything. I assumed that he thought the communists that were in our house to the ledgers to burn them. They burn our dining room chairs for warm because we were very cold, even for Greece. That spring was very cold. And there was no heat anywhere. We just wore clothes and shivered.
Can you think of any other memories about the war and the communist the attempt of the communist takeover?
Well, all I know is that the then Prime Minister that managed to come in finally, he said to all those rebels, "We'll come to this island and we'll talk peace." So they all got together, you know, islands are very plush in Greece, so they all got divided in this beautiful island to talk peace, and he arrested everybody and put them to jail. And that's how the communist uprising in Greece ended.
That's pretty interesting.
That just put them all to jail.
Now, what is your first memory of the Americans coming into Greece and the English?
We know that the English come back. We knew that the Australians had come in the beginning, before the war started. We had Australians coming. And at the end of the war, we knew that British had coming back. Nobody ever said Americans. I had no idea. So when we met your father,
This is Albert Wright.
Albert Wright, we had no idea that the Americans were there. And I was the only one that spoke a little English. So we were playing out of school when we should have been in school, as a matter of fact. 3 of us. Lily, Mary, and Maria was our friend. So we were sitting in the park, a day off from school. And that's how we met Albert, and I can't remember the other guy anymore.
So what did you think of the Americans when you first met them?
The only American I knew was your father, really. And his friend. That's about it.
Well, can you think of any last things to say before we close?
No, not really. I mean, there's many that I probably remember later and say, but right now, the only thing that's funny is that I, who spoke English more than everybody else, we're talking to Albert and his friend, and we made a date to meet again. And the English thing, I said, "We'll see you without fail." That was my, "We'll see you without fail." I don't know what.
Well, Aunt Mary, I want to thank you so much for sharing the story. This is why she's my favorite aunt, and I just love her so much. So I just want to thank everybody, and you guys are awesome. Take care.